Okay, so in this video we're going to take a look at the Umarex Beretta M92A1 air pistol. So this particular air pistol from Umarex is, I think it's been out a while now. This is the CO2 version. It also has blowback, 5 steel BBs. It's full metal and takes 18 rounds in the magazine. And this particular one, interestingly, is also field strippable, which it doesn't seem to show on the box or in the instructions. I'm not quite sure why that was left off here, unless it was something that they didn't want people being aware of. But it seems odd that it's actually not here when you can actually remove the slide and field strip this gun, which we'll show in the video. Anyway, let's take a closer look. So here's the actual pistol itself, and you can see I've got this fitted with the laser ammo spider, because I do the sort of like the laser ammo shooting simulators, and this particular gun is quite useful. So this is an addition to the guns I own, which I've also got the Umarex Glock 17, which obviously is the single action, and the reason for buying this was because of the dual action capabilities. Now, as you might have seen in other videos I've done, obviously the Umarex Glock is pretty good, but obviously it requires the CO2 to operate because it's single action, so it requires the reciprocation of the slide to reset the trigger. And I've got a couple of magazines that I purchased with that gun to sort of like obviously give me more shots, but it does kind of eat through the CO2 capsules, and you also run the problem with the CO2 being obviously very temperature dependent, so variations on shots per sort of CO2 canister can vary quite a bit. So I thought I'd get a pistol that has both double action and single action capabilities, because the double action hammer 4 is enough to trigger the laser. So so that in itself is quite useful, because it means that I can run this without any CO2 and just use the double action. Now the downside to that is obviously the kind of less accurate capabilities of double action over single action, and I'm going to play around with that obviously with some shooting on the simulators to see just whether that's something I can handle through my own shooting skills, or it really has a big impact. But anyway, I can certainly run this with CO2. It's just obviously having the double action capability to allow me to run more shots without having to need to reload is certainly one thing I was hoping to use this for. So yeah, so the gun itself, I mean, pretty heavy. I'd have to look up the actual weight of it, but it feels like a real firearm. It's got some weight to it, all metal chassis and all metal construction. This one has a rail obviously with a spider attachment on here, so you can get this without the rail, but obviously if you're going to be looking to run the spider laser ammo spider, you would definitely need to get the one with the rail. I think there's a couple of variations out there, so definitely check to ensure that the gun you're purchasing has a rail if you need that. But other than that, I mean, it's a classic looking Beretta, obviously M9. This one itself obviously is field strippable, as I mentioned, so we'll look at that in a second. But just looking around, you've got the ambidextrous safety capability here. Obviously you must just double check that I don't use any BBs in this, but obviously I've pre-cleared it. But if I just show you the magazine, you'll see that the magazine itself is all metal construction with a kind of CO2 valve here, but I typically remove the spring and the BB follower from all the sort of air guns I use, because I have no need for obviously shooting BBs. I'm just using it for the laser simulators. So in order to prevent the slide locking back on last shot, when obviously the magazine's empty, I've removed the BB sort of slide little guide plastic housing that's in here, and also the spring. So what you can do is you can remove this little plate here and then slide the spring out and the follower, so you don't obviously need that when you're using the laser targeting stuff. So that's the only sort of modifications I've made to this pistol, is by removing that. So any magazine is just a dummy magazine essentially, and obviously just relies on obviously the additional weight to the gun. But yeah, I mean, if you want to shoot steel BBs with it, you can easily put the spring and slide it back in. They're just as easy to remove as they are to add back in as they are to take out. So that's just one thing that I've done on this particular gun. But again, you've got the it only has obviously one side magazine release, so you can see obviously to release and then put it back in. The other side is not so it's not an ambidextrous magazine release. But having said that, it's no big deal on that side of things. In terms of slide, obviously you've got the slide pull back. You can lock it into position. So you can see here obviously the barrel and the gun's clear, and obviously then the slide can drop back in position. And it does leave it cocked though, so you can decock it by holding the hammer, pulling the trigger, and then just slowly releasing the hammer forward. So obviously that then puts it back into that decocked state. But yeah, so let's go ahead and field strip this. Let's remove the magazine. And on this particular one, you can remove the actual slide by using this little lever here. Now you have to push this pin in on the other side as you do so, and then you can slide this cam, which then puts it into unlocked state, and then you can literally just then pull the slide off the gun. So you can see here, you know, from a field strippable point of view, it certainly is stripped down to remove the slide. And obviously you can take all the components out of the slide, such as the recoil spring, guide rod, and obviously the barrel. This one, again, you need to, from a maintenance point of view, you need to make sure, you know, you lubricate some of the areas where the slide is going to be reciprocating. Obviously, I'm not going to use this with CO2 much, so I'm going to rely on the double action, so there will be no slide movement, apart from obviously when I, you know, choose to pull the slide back manually or remove it. You can again see the trigger drop down in there, and you can also see the hammer section here, obviously where the hammer is housed. But yeah, I mean, looking at the actual slide itself, you know, all metal construction, pretty good. Obviously got this guide rod here. I won't remove this because this is quite a powerful spring, and it's a bit of a pain to get back in, but I will show it all broken down in some images that I'll put on the website, so you can see it all disassembled. But it has obviously the standard sort of like barrel system in here, which I think is very similar to most Umarex. There is a little sort of almost foam wheel in there, which I think, if I know correctly, that's some sort of like adjustment you can do for the feed lips on the feed for the BBs. Now, I never use that. I don't really have any need to obviously shoot BBs through this. So if anyone obviously in the comments can explain what that is, I think it's some adjustment you can adjust on the feed mechanism for the BB, so you get a better feed. But yeah, not something I've seen before. Certainly not on the Glock 17 I've got. So that's the interesting feature. But again, I mean, you know, you can strip all this all down, and as I said, I'll show an image of that all broken down. But as you see, you know, it is field strippable, even though the instructions don't claim that. Now, to put it back on, you need to obviously bring the slide back a certain degree, not all the way, pull that back, and then it locks into position. So then your slide's in place, and again, you can decock it as you see fit. Now, going back to what I was saying about using this purely for the double action capabilities, obviously this particular gun, you know, you can put it into cock position there, so now it's single action. So obviously if you pull the trigger now, you get the hammer falls, so it's very sort of like good for accuracy. Now on double action, obviously it requires you to pull the trigger, which is two processes. One, the hammer comes back, and then obviously then at the end of the travel you get the hammer drop forward, so that's your double action. And as you can tell, you know, doing that, there is quite a lot of movement in the hand, so that's where the accuracy could suffer, or does suffer, with double action over single action. But having said that, you know, I mean, this is a great looking gun. Obviously played around with this in terms of on the simulators from Laser Ammo, and it's pretty good. I mean, there is a difference between the single action and double action accuracy wise, but nothing too much, and I'm sure your shooting style can overcome that if you practice enough. So yeah, great gun. Definitely recommend it, and obviously hope to sort of like show some shooting of this on other videos. Great, thanks for watching.